And call to order meeting number 1795 of the Planning and Zoning Commission at 6:30 PM. We have a quorum, 4 regular members and 1 alternate. Frank, I'm going to ask that you sit in tonight, obviously, for continued discussions on the agenda items.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Added agenda items.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have one.
Yes.
If we could add, for your consideration, an informal discussion under new business for piece of correspondence received by J.R. Russo on behalf of Apothecaries Hall Enterprise for the gravel operation, that would be appreciated.
Okay, I'm okay with that. How about the rest of the members of the commission?
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine
So-
with that.
Good evening, everyone. President Biden has just announced.
So I'm going to ask if you're not actively speaking, please put your microphones on mute. I still hear some noises. I still hear a TV in the background. I know it's not mine. Thank you. Can I have a motion from a commission member to add an item to the agenda, and we would consider it under the business meeting?
I'll move to add the correspondence from J.R. Russo under the business meeting. As
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
I
I see 5 hands. Okay, we'll talk about that under a business meeting. Next up, under legal notices, there was one. Easements Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a regular meeting on Tuesday, January 26, 2021 at 6:30 PM via the remote Zoom conferencing platform. The following public hearing will be heard. A zone change application for 111 South Main Street, requesting a zone change from R3 to TZ5. The applicant is United Ag in Turf Northeast, owner Lawrence Farm LLC. A full copy of the application is available in the Planning and Zoning Commission and on the town clerk's webpage on the town website. All interested persons may appear on the online meeting and be heard on this topic. Dated January 13th, 2021. This appeared in the Journal Enquirer on January 15th, as well as January 21st, 2021. Next up is the public participation of our meeting. Are there any comments from the audience for something that's not already on tonight's agenda?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jason Bauza.
Yes, Jason.
I wanted to introduce, I believe he's introduced the commission to our new permanent town planner. Clark Chapin comes to us most recently from USDA Farm Service Agency. He's got experience in local, state, and federal government, and he has a master's degree in community planning from the University of Iowa. So he joined us on Thursday of last week. So there's going to be a period of time where interim town planner Mike D'Amato is helping to onboard into that new role. And then as projects fall off that Mike has been working on and that Clark starts anew, there will be a transition there so that Clark is fully installed. I am very excited to welcome him to our team. I think that with the addition of Clark and Ruth Ann, that we have some real firepower in that department. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to introduce him to you guys and maybe give him a chance to say a word or two as he comes on board.
Thank you, Jason. Clark, I want to put you on the spot. Do you want to say anything?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, can hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Jay, for the kind words. This is day 4 on the job, and I've been traveling around the town, and it's amazing how many projects that I'm already familiar with, and I look forward to continuing to get my feet wet and hopefully not in the deep end of the pool, and look forward to working with Mike as we try to provide some continuity to planning and zoning as well as the other agencies we staff. And it's not, there's, as far as I'm concerned, we'll take the transition nice and slow so no balls get dropped, and these business will be conducted in a professional manner and continue forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Clark. Look forward to working with you and staff. Are there any other comments from the audience from something that's not already on tonight's agenda? You may have to wave your hand to get my attention here. There's quite a few people on this meeting. I don't see any hands raised or people waving feverishly, so I'll take that as a no. £45,000. Reiterate again, please, if you're not speaking, shut off your microphone. Next up, approval of minutes, January 12th, 2021. Are there any comments from members of the commission regarding the minutes as written?
I think they were a very good job and adequately and completely described the meeting. I have no suggested edits.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes as presented from our regularly scheduled meeting number 1794. The meeting was January 12th, 2021.
There's a motion on the table for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Go
Second
ahead,
by-
Mike.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I see 5 hands, unanimous. Next up, receipt of applications. 53 Prospect Hill Road for general development plan modification, zone HIFZ. The applicant, Tracy Becker for Sign Pro, owner, Crossroads Community Cathedral. This item will be discussed at a meeting in February. Next up, continue public hearings. There are 2. I'll announce them both together. Then I'll turn the floor over to Attorney Smith after I read them into the public record. Item A is SJK Properties LLC for a text amendment application to the East Windsor zoning regulations, section 802, multifamily development district. And the second one is an SJK Properties LLC for zone change application from a R3 to an MFDD. This is a map 100, block 11, and there's 27 identified lots, as well as map 110, block 77, 23 identified lots, as well as map 90, block 77, or 4 identified lots. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Smith.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. D'Amato and Mr. Chapin, welcome. And for the record, my name is Chris Smith. I'm a land use attorney with the law firm of Alter and Pearson. And I appear before you this evening on behalf of the applicant for the 2 applications, SJK Properties LLC. And at the outset, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I would respectfully request that I turn the presentation over to my representative, my client, Mara Kemet, who would like to make a statement to the commission at the outset of this evening's meeting. Thank you.
Merrick, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chris. I would like to take this time to address concerns raised by the general public at the last planning and zoning meeting. The Kemet family has been part of this community for over 75 years, and we are very sensitive to the Broadbrook area. Our family developed the Sullivan Farms Road subdivision, where I personally lived for several years. And as you know, my sister still lives in a neighborhood directly abutting the site. I have a personal attachment and obligation to develop our property in consideration of the public health, safety, and welfare, as well as my own family who lives right there. It has been brought to my attention that the neighborhood might be feeling left in the dark or something inappropriate is occurring. That cannot be furthest from the truth. In fact, I have been very transparent with this proposal. The community is now protesting based on false information and making predetermined conclusions without having all of the facts. Prior to this application, we met with town officials and informally with this commission on a pre-application basis as provided by law to discuss this proposal. We put all our cards on the table and left all meetings with a favorable consensus. We would not have proceeded with this application if we did not get the green light feeling or if this proposal did not make sense. I want the community to know that we notified all abutters as required and in accordance with the East Windsor Planning and Zoning regulations. Public notice was also advertised in the newspaper. These are all statutory and regulatory requirements which we complied with. I did everything by the book. I do understand the public's reaction, and I now see that I should have approached the community first. I apologize for not doing so. Regrettably, I cannot go back in time. So let me take this time to explain my family's vision for the property. In order to determine if the site was capable of supporting this type of development, we have prepared a conceptual plan to support the feasibility. The plan that was published in the Journal Inquirer is only conceptual, but it does represent our intent and vision for developing the property. At this time, there is no final design, but I would like to share some design concept elements that will be incorporated into the proposal. The proposal is intended to be for a private luxury common interest ownership community. It is not to be developed for low income or affordable housing. With the current and upcoming trend, we are looking to provide a private community for all persons not age restricted and be geared for the work at home working family. We want to provide a community that is maintenance free in regards to lawn care and snow removal, and to provide recreational use amenities for the families living there. All buildings are to be detached homes. These houses are to be separate residences to fit better with the rural setting in the surrounding neighborhood. We want to provide for a village type community. Each house will be 2 to 3 bedrooms, single family dwellings with attached garages, and with an expected value of north of $300,000 per house. There will not be any duplex type or multifamily buildings like the mansions on Canyon Ridge. No one will be sharing a common wall. Houses will be offered with home office concepts to facilitate with the new ongoing trend of working from home. Landscape buffers and additional screenings will be implemented into the design to better screen or conceal this development, which is already secluded. And regarding access and traffic on Sullivan Farm Road and Eastview Drive, please know that as part of the special permit process, a traffic analysis will be required to address any potential impacts. The entrance will be located off of Depot Street in the exact location as previously approved for the Quarry Meadow subdivision. And a secondary means for egress will be provided off the cul-de-sac for a gated emergency access only. I would like to emphasize that through traffic on Sullivan Farm Road will not be allowed. And again, for the record, the intent is to eliminate traffic on Sullivan Farm Road and therefore provide no traffic impact to that neighborhood from this development. Adversely, if we were to continue development of the previously approved Quarry Meadow subdivision, there then would be 48 more properties contributing to the traffic flow through Sullivan Farm Road, not to mention opening the door for a cut through from Depot Street and possible future development of properties to the north and east, which also connects to Hemlock Court. This proposal eliminates these traffic and connectivity issues altogether. And by removing the traffic as previously approved from going through an established residential neighborhood, thus promoting the general objective of public health, safety, and welfare. During the design stage, I will be reaching out to the abutters and work with you to understand any concerns that you may have and implement any design strategies to hopefully resolve those concerns. I am hopeful that we can work together. In my opinion, the previously approved Quarry Meadow subdivision should also be considered a multifamily residential development that consisted of 48 units on one piece of property. The term multifamily is misleading for this application. Taken from Wikipedia, the definition for a multifamily residential development is in part a classification of housing where multiple housing units are contained within one building, or multiple housing units are contained within one complex. This proposal is not an apartment complex scenario with multiple units in one building like the mansions or Mill Pond. It is the complete opposite. We are proposing multiple houses on one property, which are all single-family residences. This proposal could also be characterized as a PRD, which is a planned residential development for single-family housing with open space conservation. But as you are aware, this PRD falls under the multifamily development regulation. A zone change to the MFDD zone for this path would also be needed. To the commission, in your decision, please also consider the following. That we would have complete control over the income classification of the housing, which would not impact the neighboring property values. That this proposal reduces town maintenance efforts for the roadway and storm drainage systems. This will be a private common interest ownership development, and the town will not be required to provide services for snow removal or storm drainage maintenance. This will not be a town road. That this proposal will provide families the opportunity to reside in a community that will be maintenance-free in regard to snow removal and lawn care upkeep, as well as allow for the use of numerous amenities for recreational uses. That due to its location, this development is remote, already isolated, practically concealed from the rest of the community, and keeps the rural character of the existing areas. That this property will be developed maintaining a rural atmosphere. This is the reason for the single-family residential home model and village-type concept. That this proposal is consistent with the POCD, which urges village-type developments. That this proposal is also consistent with the POCD, which comments that increased residential density should be considered in the Broadbrook area. That this development will provide housing diversity for the town as also outlined in the POCD. And finally, that this proposal minimize any traffic impact on Sullivan Farm Road by eliminating the cut through from Depot Street and by eliminating future development possibilities to the north and east. Again, we are eliminating the traffic on Sullivan Farm Road altogether. This sensibly should be considered versus the alternative. We could construct the 48 additional homes as previously approved. This would provide additional public roads, which would increase the town's responsibility for maintenance of the roadways and drainage systems, which could also increase taxes. This would certainly eliminate the cul-de-sac that's out there. This would open connectivity for Depot Street and Hemlock Court to Sullivan Farm Road. And most likely there will be an impacted traffic for Sullivan Farm Road for the community. More vehicles will be traveling through that neighborhood. Looking back at the public's remarks during the last PZC meeting, I surmise that this is not what the community actually wants. As stated earlier, I have a personal attachment to the Sullivan Farms community, and I want to develop the property in a way that would least impact that neighborhood. I believe that I am providing this. Weighing everything out, this proposal makes the most sense. Following the last public hearing, I met with a few residents of the neighborhood to better understand the issues. The two concerns that repeatedly came up was one, we don't want more traffic, and two, we don't want a mill pond in our backyard. Let me say, I don't either. That is not what we are proposing. I do understand the not in my backyard attitude, but this property has always been slated for development, as everyone knows. This proposal will not be a mill pond or even considered for any type of apartment complex. These houses will all be individual, single-family residences, and what we are proposing is an improvement to what was previously approved. This proposal is nothing new to Broadbrook. We already have Millbrook condominiums off Church Street, which is located within a residential area and directly abuts a single-family residential subdivision. We have Hillside Farms off Depot Street, housing located adjacent to and across from several single-family homes. Meadow Farms community also off Depot Street, which directly abuts a rural subdivision known as Farms Road. Meadow Farms contains all detached houses similar to what we are proposing. The mansions at Canyon Ridge, there are 220 luxury units built within a rural designated area. Scanna Glen condominiums off Old Ellington Road. There are 220 units that were built within a rural designated area. And Norton Glen condominiums off Norton Road, also built within a rural designated area. If you recall, I met with this commission last October on a preliminary basis to discuss the need to increase density to move forward in the development due to the high construction costs. The initial concept you saw was received well. Please keep in mind the rendering shown was only conceptual and was only to be used as a talking point, nothing more. After speaking with several residents and seeing the public's voice and continue to voice their concerns, my family would like to revisit the design and see if we can develop the land in a way that can accommodate our needs, as well as address the community's concerns and reservations. Maybe we can reach a compromise. At this time, we are withdrawing the request to increase the density portion of the text amendment. So instead of having 4 units per acre as shown, we will be following the existing density limits outlined in zoning regulations, which is only 2 units per acre. Doing the math, this drops the density permitted by half. I want to produce an updated conceptual plan reflecting the decrease in housing and show the community what Quarry Meadows could be. But I did not have time to do that for tonight's meeting. Therefore, I respectfully request that this public hearing remain open and be continued to your next scheduled meeting so that I can have the opportunity to provide this additional information to you and the community. I want to end this by saying this is not a multifamily development. It is a single family development that unfortunately falls under the MFDD regulation. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to working with everyone as we proceed on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Merrick. Mr. Chairman, for the record, Chris Smith. So as Merrick indicated, what we would like to do, and I will formalize this in writing for the commission and for the record, but certainly for the record this evening, we would like to withdraw that portion of the text amendment that provides for an increase in the density within the MFDD, and specifically section, as we proposed, section 802 6B1, and we were proposing a new subsection E, where the existing E would then become F. So what we have proposed as a new E for that section in the regulations, we formally withdraw it now. And again, if I can just have a few days, certainly within a week, I can modify that. I can redline it, send it to the commission, and then have a clean copy and make it clear as to what the proposal is, so that that can be posted on the website and anybody will be able to review that. Also, in the interim, if we're respectfully requesting a continuance, Merrick would like to prepare, again, a conceptual plan, because we all know, as the chair indicated at the outset of the hearing 2 weeks ago, that a site-specific proposal is not before the commission. However, this would show a potential development proposal of the property with the text amendment and the zone change to the citizens and to the commission. That would be, I would respectfully suggest, quite different from that was shown to you on a preliminary basis back in October of 2020 and appeared in the newspaper, Journal Inquirer, I believe, before the public hearing on January 12th. So again, we're respectfully requesting there is time for the continuance so that this additional information can be provided to you. If we do get that conceptual drawing submitted, we can have that posted on the website. We certainly hope to have it before the meeting, and we will certainly get the modified text amendment to the commission and posted. If I have a week to do that, it will be a week before the continued hearing. So those are our initial comments, Mr. Chairman. I understand that a protest petition may have been filed and that's being reviewed, and there are some other issues. But again, that's our request for tonight. And I know that Merrick and his family I'll look forward to working with the commission and hopefully with the neighbors and the citizens, the public, to come up with something that works for everybody. And thank you for your time this evening, and thank you, Merrick.
You're on mute, Joe.
I think the chair's muted. Okay.
Thank you all. In my opinion, this is really a game changer regarding the application that we have before us to consider. There has been numerous public comments. We all have the petitions, part of the public record, the letters that have been submitted. We all have those. So my question to the members of the commission is there any value of continuing to open? We're going to keep the public hearing open. That's not debatable. But is there any value of continuing to hear additional public comments tonight on something that could be vastly different as we move forward? My opinion is no. Recognizing that the members of the community will still have ample opportunity to voice their opinions on something that's going to be different from what they have already looked at. I just want to see what the other, test the temperature of my fellow commission members.
Yeah, I agree, Joe, with you.
Joe, I feel like we've got a lot of comments from the public. They raised good questions. The applicant is adjusting direction. But from what's been raised and what I've been thinking about, I have a few questions I would like to ask. They may not necessarily get answered tonight, but I feel like as part of the record and maybe for the town planner to think about, and in formulating where we go from here, I'd just like to ask my questions on the record if that's acceptable.
Hey, Frank, what's your opinion?
Well, first and foremost, in my mind, it's zone change. You're going from an R3 to a multifamily. I think that's the primary consideration. I think Merrick came up with a great suggestions, and I think something we should look at in detail. But that's not the problem to me. The problem is it a zone change? I mean, we are members of the planning and zoning. I like to think we don't do enough planning. Perhaps we should really concentrate on, do we want to have an R3 change, a zone change, so that other districts in the community can be multifamily? I mean, that's really my consideration. And Merrick, I have the greatest amount of respect for your plans and your family. And when you were a member of the commission, you did a hell of a job. But my concern is the zone change. And
Frank, I think ultimately we're going to get there. But the question on the table is, should we entertain additional public comments tonight? And I'm going to go right on the record and say, I don't want to rehash everything else that's already on the public record. I'm only want to hear anything new, if in fact we do go down that road. Because we're going to be right back here in 2 weeks from now. And there's going to be a lot more questions that are going to be before us. And I want to hear those too.
I agree 100% with you, Joe. But I think my emphasis is we're spending a great deal of time on something that maybe can't even be done if the zone change doesn't go through. I think we ought to concentrate more on whether the zone change is appropriate and have some arguments or some suggestions or some discussion about whether we need to have this zone change, not specifically to Sullivan Farms area, just anywhere in the town. That's my concern.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Commissioner Kolowski?
Yeah, I think kind of I'm down the same thought as Frank, but I think you mean more the text amendment than the zone change. The text amendment can be applied anywhere in town. So that was one of the.
You're absolutely right. You're right. That's my error. It was a text amendment, obviously.
Okay. And then procedurally, can we modify the application, or does it need a re-application since they're asking for something kind of different than what they originally proposed? But as far as your question on public comment, there's no sense in taking public comment on something that is now been told us it's going to change. So nobody here now knows what the new change will be. and can comment on it appropriately.
Mike D'Amato, I'm going to turn it back over. I'm going to turn it over to you. Are you in agreement with our proposed tact regarding not entertaining additional public comments, keeping the public hearing open, just as everyone's suggesting, and move forward within, the next 2 weeks? The next meeting is February 9th, and we're going to have a bunch of new things to talk about.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I think that keeping the hearing open and doing nothing with it tonight is the cleanest. My concern would be having any discussion of any kind between commissioners or the applicant would potentially leave some comments or questions in purgatory, if you will, because they may apply to the old application, they may not apply to the modification, and I want, for the purposes of everybody to understand where we are, I'd rather wait to see what the modifications reflect, particularly because Merrick has indicated he's going to try to be responsive to the concerns he's heard. To Commissioner Kowalski's point, because the modification that's being proposed by the applicant is more restrictive, it can be modified while we are in progress. If he were going to make it less restrictive, then we would be back to square one. So he can do that while the hearing is open. The only thing that I would also note is that we did also receive a request from the Ellington Planning and Zoning Commission to respectfully hold the hearing open so they could provide us with a memo. They met last night, so they couldn't turn it around in time. And we did also receive a petition from residents in the area. And per statute, once we verify the numbers and percentages are correct, it will likely trigger a supermajority vote. And we'll have more information on that for the next meeting. So I think that's probably the best path forward.
Okay.
Sorry, one other thing. The one thing that I would want from the applicant is some good faith confirmation that given the fact that the next meeting is the last date that you can have the hearing open without an extension, I think it would be good to get a confirmation from them that if you are going to kind of hold this open and kind of take their request and go with it, that they would be willing to grant those extensions moving forward, so you had time to consider whatever he's going to bring to the next meeting.
And Mr. Chairman, for the record, Chris Smith, we consent to whatever extensions are necessary. I think we could go through, Merrick, the 23rd, which would be your next meeting after that. And we'll go with the 24th. I always go the day after. In the old days, it used to be because of snow, a potential snow event. But in this case, if there's a power outage, which I've had happen twice downstate early on in COVID with a couple of the storms we had, so that everybody's covered and you can get an extension, I'm more than willing to confirm that in a correspondence with your town planner, with Mr. D'Amato, tomorrow, first thing. But for the record, tonight we're stating that. And again, the extension's not necessary until after the 9th.
Okay.
That's a statutory extension for the public, in which the hearing would have to be closed.
So for members of the public, go ahead. For members of the public, I'm just going to reiterate what our plan or intent is. We haven't taken a vote on this yet. It's our intent to continue the public hearing to February 9th. And you will have a full opportunity. Well, the applicant will be making another presentation similar as they did tonight. My understanding will be a revised design, which is intended to address community concerns. They have withdrawn or modified, well, withdrawn the text amendment. So that's something that we're not going to be, there's no need to talk about that anymore because the density numbers are not going to be changing. So even though we're moving this to February, you still will be allotted the full amount of time to talk about this. And since the public hearing is open, if you feel obligated, because I'm not going to allow you to speak tonight, if you want to submit a letter to the Plan and Development Office, go right ahead. We'll still take those for the public record, but we're not going to do it here. So with that, I'm going to entertain a motion from the commission to continue the public hearing for both public hearings, and you have to announce them both kindly, until February 9th.
Mr. Chairman, this
Yes.
is Bowser. Before you do that, understanding that the requirement to close the public hearing is currently the 9th with an extension to the 23rd, is that, will the residents who have concerns have sufficient time to view the revised plans prior to the closing of even the extended hearing?
It's my understanding that they will, but in fact that they don't. If we're forced to make a decision based on what we have now, I don't see the commission members approving this this request, because we just won't have ample time to appropriately react to this. So that's kind of where I'm going with this.
Thank you, sir.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for these two public hearings until February 9th.
I'm happy to make the motion, but I was wondering if you would be willing to let me put some questions on the record for the town planner.
And can that be done on, you're allowed to have your own conversations with, not commission members, administratively with staff.
Okay,
Can you have your own private conversations with staff but not with the commission members?
if you don't mind me doing that, that's fine.
That's your prerogative. Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
then I would,
Excuse me. So what I can do, Ann, if you want to talk with us, myself or Clark, we can respond to your questions in writing and provide that memo for the record so that everybody else will know what your questions were, and then we'll try to provide a response, assuming we can pull a response together, but that way there, everybody will have the same information, but we don't have to worry about getting into it tonight. Does that work for you?
that's fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to create a hard time. I'm just trying to provide consistency in the way we treat everything. That's all.
That's fine.
Your
I-
comments and everyone else's are extremely valuable.
I just felt there
Okay.
were some things that had to get answered, and I wanted to give town staff time to be able to do that.
No problem.
So with all that said, I will move to continue the public hearings on PZ 2020-20 SJK Properties LLC for a text amendment application to the East Windsor zoning regulations, section 802, multifamily development district, and PZ 2020-21 SJK Properties LLC for a zone change application for a zone change from R3 to MFDD for the maps, blocks, and lots all specified on the agenda, and continue the public hearing till our next meeting, which would be February 9th at 6:30 p.m.
There's a motion on the table to continue the two public hearings to our next scheduled meeting, which is February 9th, 2021. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Any discussion? Here are none. I call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 I see 5 ayes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Next up, under new public hearings, 111 South Main Street for a zone change application for United Ag Turf Northeast for zone change from R3 to TZ5. Who's here to present this one?
Good evening. Tim Kuhn with J.R. Russo and Associates here tonight representing United Ag and Turf Northeast. If I can be granted the ability to share my screen, then that would mean I can pull up the plans to show you.
Jason, do you have that ability?
Once,
Can you allow Tim Kuhn to share his screen?
yep, he's all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So the subject property is a portion of 111 South Main Street, which is an 88-acre parcel located on the east side of Route 5 across from Winton Road and about 720 feet north of Phelps Road. I'm going to switch to, if I could get there. This is an aerial photograph which shows the proposed zone change overlaid. So the parcel that we are looking at is, I'm just outlining it here. It's about 7 acres. The front portion, obviously, the front 250 feet is zoned TZ5, and the rear is zoned R3. Beyond that is zoned A1. This is very similar to an application for a zone change you had up the street at your last meeting. The TZ5 is the transitional zone that allows for business and commercial uses. And the R3 allows for small residential lots at high density. What United Ag and Turf is proposing is to, well, they currently operate Stanton Equipment, which actually is located just up here on the north end portion of the page at 105 South Main Street, and they wish to rezone this area that we're proposing for the zone change in order to get about 7 acres TZ5 to allow them to relocate and build a new facility at this location, because they currently don't have enough room for what they want to do at their current location. And as currently zoned, they wouldn't have enough room to do what they want to do at this new location either. So they are requesting the zone change to get the additional area in the back. There is public water, sewer, natural gas, electric, all in South Main Street. So the infrastructure exists for the any commercial developments in the TZ5 here. In addition, as you can see, the area that we're requesting the zone change for is essentially abutted by vacant land of the current property owner who is party to this application to the north and the east. And it's abutted by a parking lot for Southern Auto to the south and other commercial buildings to the southwest. So we do believe then that this proposal is in harmony with the surrounding area. We also believe it's in harmony with the plan of conservation and development, which speaks to transitioning from residential uses to business uses along the Route 5 corridor, while seeking to minimize impacts to the residential properties. And as I mentioned here, there's no residential properties that immediately abut this. The only, and as I mentioned, the only real residential property is the property which is to the rear, which is currently owned by Lawrence Farm, who owns the subject property as well. So they're well aware of what's being proposed and in support of it. The POCD also suggests that the current TZ5 area be reassessed based upon the new Route 5 corridor study prepared by CROG. And the Route 5 corridor study, actually, I will bring this up because Jay brought it up at the last zone change meeting. And you may recall that there's a section in the Route 5 corridor study that he highlighted, which states that more commercial and less residential development is suggested, more than what's suggested in the current plan of conservation and development. It also provides a development map, a conceptual development map for this particular piece. This is the property of Lawrence Farm. This area up front is where we are currently proposing the zone change to TZ5. There's currently an 88-acre piece owned by Lawrence Farm, as well as another piece owned by Lawrence Farm in the back. And the Route 5 corridor study has prepared this map to suggest that this entire parcel could be developed as an industrial park. And the proposed zone change that is in front of you currently is consistent with that, because it's starting off the commercial activity in the front. It still leaves this opens for access. And I will go back to my other plan here if I can get to it here. That, I'm gonna go to the aerial then. Sorry, bear with me. So the way that we have set up these lots, I know one of the concern in Mike DiMatto's memos was that the development of the areas up front as commercial can either limit or constrain access and development of the rear portion of this parcel. However, as I mentioned, there is contiguous land owned by Lawrence Farm, which to the rear of this, so they actually would have frontage out onto Phelps Road. That's one point. And the other is that the way that our lot and zone change has been set up is that we've kind of left it open for either an access driveway or access road across from Winton Road in order to provide access to the rear of the parcel as well. So we do believe that, this is a particular piece where providing access to the rear is still there. There's still an opportunity for that. There's still an opportunity for whatever type of development, whether it be residential under the current zoning, whether it be a change resulting from the Route 5 corridor to an industrial park. Regardless, what we're proposing here, we don't feel is going to impede the future development of the land in the rear. So in conclusion, we do believe that this proposed zone change is in harmony with the plan of conservation and development, as well as the Route 5 corridor study, as well as the surrounding neighborhood. The necessary infrastructure is there, and we believe that this can be developed as TZ5 without or with minimal impacts to any of the surrounding residential properties. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Okay, well, we'll start with the commission. Commissioner Golden, you have any questions or comments?
The parcel to the north, which I think has the number 63 on it, is
Yes.
that residential?
I believe there are two houses located behind the current Stanton equipment. Yes, it is zoned residential, and I do believe there are residential houses back there at this time.
And then I see on the map what looks like a cul-de-sac in, yes, is that south? Whatever
Yes, that's South Road.
Okay.
Yep, that's South Road. So there
And-
are residences within 500 feet.
And being
Yes.
transparent with the neighbors, the property 63, 64, and the residents on South Road are aware of this?
The notifications were sent out in accordance with the town's requirements. We did notify all the abutters within 500 feet. They were notified, and I believe we submitted the proof of notifications to the planner.
So is the red circle the 500 feet?
That's correct, yes.
So 63 and 64 got notice.
Right. South Road was outside of the required notifications.
And the front part of, I'll say, the condo development on Winton Road would have gotten notice.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Jim, you're up next.
Yeah, can you show me where that access point is coming out on Phelps Road to get to the backside of that property? You have that in your maps?
You know, I don't, let me pan to see if it goes that far. I'm not sure it does. One thing I could do is I could go to your town GIS. But if it's just beyond this, this is a field that abuts Phelps Road.
Yeah.
Okay, so if
There you
once you
go.
pass South Road, there's this open field, and as you continue down, there's some tobacco bar. I don't know, is the tobacco barn still there? there used to be a tobacco barn out in that field, which was accessed. There was a driveway that came off of Phelps Road that went out to that tobacco barn. I think it's quite a bit further down, but there's a wetland system in here, and then beyond that, there's more open field to the east, Jim.
So there's plenty of access to getting that property to develop it in the rear, like you said.
Yeah, in fact, there was a prior application on this piece for, it's been, how long ago was it? I think it was in 2012. There was a residential development here, which included a through road all the way from South Main Street out to Phelps Road. That went through wetlands and was approved. It didn't make it to planning and zoning, but there is the ability for a through street to actually make it through there. It's
That
been
was that big
designed.
development they were gonna put in there, correct?
What's that?
That was the big development they were gonna put in there.
Yeah, it was apartments.
Yeah.
It was the same developer for that did Scannick apartments across from Rebase.
Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, there is the ability to provide access out to Phelps Road or a through street if necessary.
Yeah, I just want to know the location. That was all.
Okay.
I'm good, Joe.
Mike, you're up next.
I'm fine. I'm good with it. I think it fits the TZ5 zone being incorporated into the residential area. It's not intrusive on anybody. I'm okay with the plans as submitted.
Thank you, Frank. Jim, I'm sorry, Mike.
Okay. Tim, the parking lot that you said belongs to Southern Auto?
Yes.
That still remains R3 zone?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So then that's going to require the 150-foot buffer off of your new proposed TZ5?
Well, the TZ5 buffer is 100 feet, which can be reduced to up to 50 feet, which is likely what we would request in this case, seeing how it's buffering a parking lot.
Okay, because I was going to say, does your proposed location accommodate that setback for the buffer? But
Yes.
You're saying that.
Yeah, assuming that the commission is amenable to reducing it to 50 feet, which is something that they have done in other locations, that we would be, we've planned for that, yes.
Okay, and do they plan to continue to operate out of the existing building, or it's going to relocate all operations to the new building?
I believe the intent is to relocate all operations to the new building.
All right, so that we don't expect there's going to be kind of equipment traffic back and forth between the two sites.
I do not know. No, I don't believe so. I'm not certain of that because I don't know the intent of what the plan is for the existing building, but I know that they did want to move everything over here. So, and unfortunately, the applicant couldn't make it this evening to answer questions. So I apologize for that, but he had a conflict.
Okay. All right, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Tim, I just have two questions. On the drawing of the red circle on it, there is a leader goes proposed zone line, R3 zone, TZ5.
Yep.
What's the strategy of actually drawing the line there in the R3 zone rather than keeping it going due north to bisect or terminate somewhere between lots 63 and 64 at the top of the page?
Well, the main reason is that United Ag and Turf is looking for 7 acres, and that's what this comprises. This, by adding a property line there, that provides for 7 acres and would leave the remaining land as is under the current ownership after United Ag and Turf purchased this 7-acre piece. So in the future, if the current owner decided that commercial was the way to go up front, he could go for a similar zone change. However, this also leaves it open for him to do potential residential and the current A1 uses there as well. Yeah,
that kind of leads into my second question. The there's really nothing on, if this were to be approved, the zone change, restricting the owner from actually pursuing a residential development out back.
No, he could pursue that. Yes.
Okay. Mike D'Amato, do you have any questions or comments other than what you wrote in your staff memo?
Yeah, just a couple of points. One, the reason why the access to Phelps probably isn't jumping out at folks is because it's contiguous acreage, but it's another parcel. So it's not, when you select the parcel, it's not all one piece, but it is contiguous. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that, yes, this is a zone change, but it's not really a zone change because the TZ5 already exists on the property. And so it's a little bit unique and something I tried to explain eloquently in my memo, but probably failed, is that you have this weird sort of discrepancy between what the PUSDD says, what the warehouse point, that's later, what the Route 5 study says, what the existing zoning already has, and it doesn't all meet together and match. The other thing that I think is important to point out, and I don't think Tim can measure it here, and I was trying to see if I could do it quickly on the GIS, but the existing TZ5 zone line, which was preset on this parcel, when you take out the state right-of-way and then the setbacks, you probably can't get a building there. It's just not wide enough.
Yeah.
So, yes, he's increasing the area, but I would suggest that there probably is not enough TZ5 on that parcel now to really get any type of development, given the bulk standards that we have for that zone. And other than that, if anybody has questions about my memo, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, the TZ5 zone, you're correct, Mike. The TZ5 only goes back 250 feet. So once you take out your front yard and your rear yards, you really are limited to what you can do in that piece.
It kind of gets back to the point I was made earlier about where the R3 and TZ5 zone line is on that lot 61. Whether it makes sense, make the property more marketable just to continue that line due north. I know that's not on the table before us, but that's strategically whether or not that makes sense to do that at this time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the change to TZ5, it opens it up for commercial development, but I'm not sure if it puts more restrictions on it for potential residential development. I don't know.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission before I open it up to take entertain public comments? Okay, this is a public hearing. Are there any members of the community that wish to speak? If you do, just kindly you have to just state your name for the record. I'm going to try to identify everyone. So, is there anybody out there that would like to speak on this application?
Yeah, it's Jerry Ouellette and Amy Olszewski. We're actually
Go right
on
ahead.
number 64. So we came into this late, but where are they proposing the road? I got to the part where he was talking about the old barns, which are gone. Would they be coming in way far from there? Or are they going to come in next to this cul-de-sac area and come in?
Go ahead, Tim. I'll let you answer.
There's no road proposed at this point in time. And the road that we were discussing was a potential access road to provide future development of the area in back and potentially the area that abuts your property. However, that's all future speculation. We don't know how that land will be developed in the future. What we're concerned with right now is just the area up against South Main Street, which is I'm highlighting here. This is our property area, and this is the area subject to our zone change. This is the area we're looking for the zone change so we can do commercial development there.
Okay, so that won't even affect us, and they're still going to be coming in the front on South Main Street.
Off South Main Street, correct.
And then this area here where the 62 And the TZ5 zone, that is actually our entranceway in and 63's entranceway in. So nothing is going to change that.
Yeah, we're not proposing any changes up
Okay.
on lot 62.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public? I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand. If I'm missing you, just please speak out if you would like to speak about this application.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Oh, hi, I'm Carla Dawson, and I live in the condos that are right off of Winton Road. And the traffic in that area has always been a concern for us. Is this going to be an increase in traffic? I mean, probably while it's being built, but like, are there going to be, large trucks coming in and out? Because trying to get out from Winton Road onto Route 5 without a traffic light being there, that has always been a big concern.
Tim, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, and I would just first point out that this isn't the site plan application at the moment. We're just doing the zone change. This area up front is currently zoned PZ5. We're just looking to expand it a little in order to accommodate, the relocation of United Ag and Turf. It's really going to be, what the traffic that they have at Stanton Equipment is, I'm assuming, would be comparable to what you could expect for United Ag and Turf. So I don't expect there to be a significant change in the
Okay,
traffic.
I wasn't sure, like, if it was going to be expanded, like with their number of employees and that sort of thing.
If the building may be a little bigger, there may be some expansion in the number of employees. I won't know that till we get into the site plan approval process. This will be a special permit in this zone, so that would all come back before the commission, and really that's that can be addressed at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Someone else from the public have questions or comments on this application? If I'm not seeing your hand raised, feel free to speak out. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Okay. Anyone else have any comments for Tim from the commission? Okay, one last request. Anyone from the public have any comments? Okay, I don't see any. So fellow commission members, do we have enough information to consider closing the public hearing tonight? I feel I do, but what about you folks?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Comfortable.
I'm comfortable.
Yep.
Tim, any final comments before we entertain closing the public hearing?
No, I think we're good. I appreciate all your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing on application PZ 2021-01, 111 South Main Street, map 052, block 20, lot 61, for a zone change. The applicant is United Ag and Turf Northeast, and the zone change would be R3 to TZ5.
There's a motion on the table to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, a call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Do I hear 5? Are there any abstentions? Okay. Public hearing is closed. I noticed that we're just rereading Mike D'Amato's memo. He did not provide a motion for approval, denial, depending on the comments received tonight. So Mike, I think that's on your list for next meeting.
Yep, we will get one for the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, Tim, so looks
right.
like we can, we're anticipating a vote for our one of our next meetings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Next up, old business, 89 Bridge Street, site plan application for a 5,400 square foot addition to the existing firehouse and parking lot, Zone B1. The owner applicant is Warehouse Point Fire District. Tim, again?
Yes, it is. Good evening. Tim Kuhn with J.R. Russo and Associates, here representing the Warehouse Point Fire Department, as well as Chief Barton. I believe I saw him on earlier. We made our main presentation at the last meeting, and there were only a couple of outstanding issues. I believe one was we were to add the light locations on the plan, which we have done. There will be building mounted lights. I also submitted cut sheets for those lights to Mike for review. Other than that, the second thing that was outstanding were you guys wanted to see the updated architectural elevations, which were also submitted. These updated elevations do include the windows, which we discussed on the south and east sides, in addition to a cupola. There's kind of an architectural feature on the roof. And then the final item that was left outstanding was the landscaping. And we did add a call out on the plan, the revised plan that was submitted, stating that the existing landscaped island around the current sign, which wasn't shown on the prior plan, all we showed was a sign, but there is existing landscaping, including shrubs and flowers around the sign. They will be relocated as well as the sign. So there will be some landscaping around the sign, along the frontage, but it'll be low landscaping in light of the concerns regarding maintaining visibility of exiting fire trucks for vehicles approaching on Route 140. With regard to the additional trees, which Mike is proposing as a condition of approval, again, I think Chief Barton made the comment at the last meeting due to the limited space. And again, with the concern for visibility of fire trucks along the frontage, we would really prefer not to have to put those trees in. And, you know, it did sound like a couple of the commissioners were okay with that. Commissioners were okay with that at the last meeting. But we would just ask to revisit that. And again, our preference is not to have to put those in. However, if you require it, then we will. So that, I think, addresses all of the outstanding issues. And unless you have any more comments or questions.
So Tim, I'm going to get this conversation started here. Let's talk about landscaping. So there's a requirement in the zoning regs, and we don't have the flexibility of having waivers here. So how are we going to address that zoning requirement moving forward? How do you propose we do that?
Well, I would suggest this being a redevelopment, because there's a requirement for trees of 50 feet around the entire parcel. And we obviously can't do that. And there are a few trees currently located along the eastern parcel or the eastern property line, but there are none to the north, the south, or up against the bank. And frankly, there's not room for any trees of the north to south, or there may be some trees, again, opportunity for some trees in the area along the frontage where Mike had mentioned it, up in that the northeast corner. However, again, there are some existing trees that are still there, and you know, as a redevelopment project, consider those to meet the the nature of the regulation.
If the applicant were anyone different, I think that would, your statement would be a non-starter. Just saying that for the record.
Well,
So, to me, that doesn't fly. So that's my opinion. So I'm going to open up to fellow colleagues here. So Jim, what's your opinion about the landscaping?
He kind of really didn't answer the question. He sidestepped it. I know for public safety, I love the idea of having the expansion of the firehouse. I don't know on what kind of terms we can make that happen, like you mentioned. The old school days, you could have a waiver and get rid of the trees. I'd be fine with that. Like Joe said, I don't know which road we can travel down to make that happen legally.
So Jim, while you're speaking, do you have any other comments that you would like to bring up?
No, I'm good with everything else. I mean, I'm fine with the expansion and the moving of the sign and all that stuff. I'm good.
Okay. Frank, how about you?
Well, I think it's a no-brainer. It's got to go in. It's for the health and safety and the welfare of our community. And if we're going to haggle over a few simple things like trees and not trees, Joe, I hate to say it, but I completely disagree with you.
Fair enough. Ann?
I was happy to see the cupola, if that's the correct way of saying it, on the roof, because I thought that added architectural detail. I'm happy to hear there's going to be plantings around the signage, but I do not see a reason why two very small decorative trees that aren't tall couldn't fit in. And I feel like the regs call for trees and we should require trees.
Okay, Ann, do you have any other comments regarding the site plan design?
No.
Okay. Mike Kozlowski?
Yeah, I'm trying to look up how specific is the reg on the definition of the street trees that does it give a size, height, diameter, all of that, or just says that there'll be street trees planted?
I'm going to defer to Mike D'Amato, but I think it's pretty clear in his memo where he states, Mike, can you just kind of refresh this for the record?
Yeah. So I don't want to make a misrepresentation that I'm really, what I'm pushing for is landscaping. And the basis for that is because I think every site Tim's come in with since I've been here, I've pushed for landscaping because I think it's a really important site component. I don't think it needs to be a street tree. That was my suggestion based on the fact they're removing 2 trees from the property line. I'm fine with them putting them in a place where they feel they won't create a sightline hazard and sizing them so that the type of tree will not grow to become an issue. But I think that, I was just looking through in the subdivision regs to see if they define street trees that shall be a certain distance from the road, and I did not see anything. And so I would suggest that there is flexibility to determine the location of those street trees so that they don't create any issues.
So in that case, a pair of miniature Japanese maples would satisfy the reg then. And that thing won't grow in any of our lifetimes. I think a compromise somewhere along those lines could be met. Satisfy the reg and still have nothing that would interfere with any public safety or sight lines.
Tim, is there any wiggle room of placing some street trees to try to satisfy the intent of the regulation that we don't have the authority to waive? We really don't.
No,
in some capacity, got to try to meet us.
Yes, I would defer to Chief Barton, who's here tonight. So
okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And I would say I appreciate the flexibility to allow us to go with perhaps some smaller trees, some ornamental trees, which there's hopefully more room for. We could space them closer together and they would not be as obtrusive or provide visibility issues.
Chief, can you kindly weigh in?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I don't know how many people have ever walked this site down here, but with the wetlands regulations and the retention basin that we need to put in, there's an extended driveway. There really isn't any good spot for a 3-inch tree. That's what I was getting at. At least 3 inches in caliper every 50 feet around the perimeter. I can't do that. That can't happen. As
I
far
think,
as
Chief,
maybe a little tree out front next to the sign or something, as long as it's not above 6 feet.
I think that's really all we're asking for, Chief. We understand that the regulations and the way they are prescriptive, but it looks like there's some flexibility for us to interpret the type of landscaping, the location of the landscaping, the height of the landscaping. We understand that we never want to put ourselves to, just to satisfy the intent of a regulation and create another obstacle for the fire department or another hazard. That's not our intent. But we have to go ahead.
I mean, we are going to do the island around the sign, and that's going to be a nice island with shrubbery and trees and annual flowers around it. But that's really the only good spot I have to do anything, unless I put it along the blue ditch, and then it creates an issue with the state and that have to come clean that out every couple of years. So I don't know how much I can interfere with that. But really, even plowing snow with trees around the driveway, they're just going to create a hassle for me.
So, hey, Tim, do you have the flexibility of opening up the site plan for this, the
Yes.
proposed addition?
Yep, let me go back.
Chief Martin, this is Frank Gowdy.
Hey, Frank.
Jim, you got to be a little more flexible here. I mean, if the trees are going to bother you with the snowplow and the snowplow knocks them over, well, so it be. You might have to plant them again or stand them up. But you've got to give us a little leeway. You're putting us in a bind here.
Well, if you tell me I have to put a tree in, I have to put a tree in. So, I mean, I really don't have any other option. The only option I could put a tree is on the east side of the driveway. That's the only really spot I can put a tree at. I mean, I don't have any other land. We already had to obtain variances to put the building up and put the driveway up. So, I mean, I think if that's the case, there needs to be a waiver process or something where we could waive trees. But there's if you look at the plan, there's obviously no space for it. But if you want me to put a tree in, I'll put a tree in somewhere. I'll find a spot for it.
Well, Jim, you got to remember, I don't think we're in a position where we can waiver. So, now what's next? Let's look to the future. Let's deal here a little bit. You know how that goes when you were building my house.
I know I was dealing. I was going to put some trees around the sign.
So, Mike D'Amato, do the trees around the sign constitute the landscaping as defined in our zoning regulations, section 600?
So the language says that it requires properties developed in this zone to provide landscaping on the portions of the site that are not covered by impervious surfaces. It also requires the trees 3 inches in caliper be provided for each 50 feet. So I think that frankly, the regulation requires a heck of a lot more. And I'm not you know, in the suggested motion that I provided, it says the plan shall be revised to include 2 street trees. We can adjust that potential motion to say the plan shall be revised to include additional landscaping, you know, in, as determined to be appropriate in consultation with town staff. I mean, we can adjust it. I'm not trying to get into an argument over a tree. I just think it's important that we make sure that we establish a baseline that all sites have to provide landscaping of some kind. If trees are going to be too high and maintenance is going to be a problem, then they can provide landscaping of some other kind in between the proposed parking lot and the roadway. But given the variances to impervious surface and some of the other things that are going on here, I think to counterbalance that, particularly with the Warehouse Point planning study, we need to be consistent in our application of the regs. And so I'm just trying to make sure we do that.
You know, if it helps you guys, I would take the island from around the sign and I would continue the landscaping all along those parking spots and put low landscaping in there and make it almost like a mound, almost if you see in front of Geisler's where they have along the roadway, they have the short green bushes and it's an island. I mean, I could do something like that. I just think trees are gonna be a problem for me.
So what you're suggesting, Jim, here is where the sign is here to take this kind of extend a bark mulch island with some low shrubs along the frontage of that, in between the parking lot and the street, similar to exactly what across the street at Geisler's.
Yes.
I think if you put something like hydrangeas, you know, something that's low, it would be fine. I mean, that's the concept of the trees is, you know, look along the street.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
So Mike D'Amato, if we were to do that, how would you amend your proposed conditions of approval? So right now you have a conditions number 5. It says 2 additional street trees shall be provided. Would you say something about additional landscaping be provided at the discretion, or I don't know how, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how did you paraphrase that before?
So yeah, I think that would work. I mean, from a staff perspective, I think what's being proposed is fine. I understand that the regulations don't have a caveat for when a fire apparatus is leaving a site, it's exiting in a different way than you or I leave a parking lot. And so because of that, this is a unique circumstance. I would suggest we modify, that would be condition 5, to read something along the lines of the plans shall be revised to expand the landscape island along the sign for a distance, I'm writing this as we go, or along the front
Along the parking lot.
Parking area.
Yeah.
Along the parking area, yep, adjacent to Bridge Street.
To the satisfaction of town staff, so that we don't have to deal with this here, and he can provide something in a revised plan, and this doesn't have to go another meeting.
Perfect.
One thing that I would like to go over, because this came up at the last meeting and it didn't factor into the motion because for a number of reasons, but we talked about sending this over to Terry, and she saved me because I was slow in getting everything to her, and she still turned around some comments. So that's a pat on her back and my bad, but she had 10 things that she sort of provided. Obviously, we know we haven't adopted the planning study recommendations. We don't have regulations for this now, and this is a site plan modification, so we're very limited in what we can ask for. But I think it's important only because it shows you the type of comments that will be brought forward if we move this planning study, you know, and finalize it. And I think Terry's here, so if she has anything to add afterwards. She identified the need for street trees as well. She identified the need for a sidewalk. She indicated that the DOT application should include a definition of sidewalk across open drive pavement. suggested that the parking area be pervious pavement. Suggested a planting along the southeast corner and along the church property. And she suggested an access and maintenance easement along the blue ditch in favor of the town. Providing a sidewalk from the street to the front door. Providing a better definition of the front door, in not definition like please define what a door is, but definition of on the building. And also brought up that the existing accessible parking does not meet the 2010 ADA requirements with respect to access aisle and van accessibility. I believe that's something that would be addressed during the building permit application phase, right? If it doesn't meet the ADA, I think that Rand would pick that up. Maybe Tim would know, but and Terry is here if you have any specific questions. But those are the types of things that the planning study will, the types of comments the planning study will generate.
Our handicap access is on the west side of the building. On the bank property line.
You know, no, Mike, those are all good comments, except we're dealing with an existing building and we're trying to make it better for the general public. So sometimes, you know, you can't always get all the things that you want. This addition is something good for the town. And I think we should just move forward. I love to put a sidewalk in, but I know you don't have the real estate to do that, I believe.
And in this case, there is, you know, sidewalk across the street. The sidewalk does, you know, run from this property to the end of the road. So yeah, I mean, those are just all things to think about access, you know, in this area. The commission's going to have to start sort of thinking, okay, people will arrive at the site via car, via bus, via bike, on foot. And so we need to start creating opportunities for all users. Recognizing that, you know, pedestrians and safety equipment perhaps don't mix. But you know, she turned those comments around. And so I wanted to at least put them out in front of you so that, you know, you could see what her consideration was. And again, Terry, appreciated that you did so quickly.
And we know Terry's thorough.
I think Terry's comments are excellent. I think the challenge here is this came in before the study was complete. So I don't know that we can ask for, I'll say, more at this point in time. But I agree with you, Mike, that for future development, we need to make it clear up front.
You know, what would have been helpful on this is to have a pre-application and talk about the concepts, because, you know, I live in this town a long time, not as long as some of my colleagues on the board, but nonetheless, I had no idea that this was even in the works until it actually appeared on, you know, a receipt of applications. So obviously there are plans in the works for a long time. No one at any time even thought about at least talking to the commission about some of the opportunities were on this site, recognizing is limited. You know, I like to say that we don't have the discretion of turning down a site plan request, but we honestly do. Is that the right thing to do here? Absolutely not. But we do have that discretion, and I don't want to see that happen here. But if this were a different development type, you know, I don't think we would be as liberal or applying the regulations or the intent of the regulations as we're talking about right now.
Agreed.
You're absolutely right. You're correct.
So with that, is there any other comments before we consider taking action tonight on this one?
I would just ask, Mike, you probably repeat how you want to modify number 5.
Yep. So I would suggest we revise condition 5 to read, the plans shall be revised to include a landscape island along the front parking area adjacent to Bridge Street to the satisfaction of town staff.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. If there are no other comments, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move to approve application PZ 2020-22 for site plan approval, map 111, block 12, lot 5, known as 89 Bridge Street. The applicant / owner is Firehouse Fire Department. It's in a B1 zone. This approval is granted subject to the conformance with the reference plans as may be modified by the commission in this approval, and the following conditions and modifications that are outlined in Mike D'Amato's memo revised January 20th, 21, with the exception of condition number 5 under conditions which must be met prior to signing Mylars, and 5 would be edited to read as follows. The plan shall be revised to include an expanded landscaping island along the front parking lot to the satisfaction of town staff.
There's a motion on the table for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
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 I see 5. Unanimous? Thank
Very
you,
much.
Tim. Thanks, Chief, for bearing with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is 198 South Main Street. Site plan application for the demolition of existing house and construction of a 9,600 square foot building and parking lot for an automobile workshop. It's my understanding that this is going to be continued to our next meeting on February 9th. So we're not going to be talking about this. Mike, is there any need for a motion on this one? You're just putting here as a placeholder?
I put it there so anybody from the public who's following would know that this was happening. I would prefer a motion just to push it, just so that we have it. The applicant is using this time to develop responses to the questions that were asked at the last meeting. And that's just going to take a little bit more time.
Okay, fair enough. Can someone offer a motion to continue the application, review the application for 198 South Main Street?
I'll move to continue the application PZ 2020-19 for site plan approval, map 2, block 5, lot 79, known as 198 South Main Street. Owner applicant Central AS LLC. It's a B2 zone, and it will be continued to our next regular meeting, which is February 9th at 6:30 p.m.
There's a motion on the table to continue the application for 198 South Main Street to February 9th. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor say aye or raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
I see 5 hands, unanimous. Thank you. Next up, 87 South Main Street, zone change application. It says TZ6, should that be TZ5, I'm thinking? R3 and A1 to TZ5 and A1, the owner applicant Dave Mason. I wonder if that's a typo in the agenda.
Yeah, we don't have a TZ6.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
We got enough zones.
And potentially we could have some more, depending what happens in Warehouse Point. Nonetheless, so just bring everyone up to speed on here, Mike. I may ask you to fill in some of the blanks on this one. We closed our
Sure.
public hearing at our last meeting. And we had asked for some additional time to consider some of the comments we heard from for the applicant, from the public, and also give Mike an opportunity to prepare a memo for consideration. So with that, does any member of the commission have any comments or questions for staff? So the comments should be directed to Mike D'Amato or myself or amongst ourselves. So we're all good on this one? Well, with that, I'm please bear with me. I'm just trying to pull up my motion of approval on one of my 6 screens here. Okay, this is it. So we're to close the public hearing. So anyone want to offer a motion for the zone change application?
I'll move to approve application PZ 2020-18. It's a zone change application for A1 and R3 to TZ5, 87 South Main Street, applicant Dave Mason. The approval is granted subject to the conformance with the reference plans as may be modified by the commission in this approval, and the conditions and modifications are 3 conditions in a memo dated January 22nd from Mike D'Amato to the commission.
There's a motion on the table to approve the zone change application. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mike. Any discussion? The only thing I'll say is, in my opinion, that this proposed zone change is consistent with the plan of conservation and development. And that's why I will be voting in the affirmative from that. And any other comments? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor, raise their hand, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I see 5. It's approved unanimously. Thank you. Okay. Next up, item D under old business, warehouse point planning study to include Terry Hahn of LADA PC Land Planners.
Hi, guys.
Good evening, Terry.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Terry.
For the record, Terry Hahn, LADA PC Land Planners, the town's consultant for this project. We have delivered to you guys the final report. There are paper copies. In case you want a paper copy, as well as digital copies. The digital copies are very good. The digital copies are a little bulky, so that it's somewhat problematic, but that does exist. As we were putting together the final version of this, and especially after the discussion last week, I added a couple of things that I'd like to share, if that's okay. First off, in order to facilitate, as part of the regulations, in order to facilitate conversations with applicants, I put together a checklist, and obviously it's a draft. So, you know, it's something as you guys go forward, you're probably going to want to amend, but it kind of talks about the things that I'm extracting the ideas that are in the report and putting them more into a functional checklist where you can talk about specific applications and specific projects, but try to go through ideas of, you know, is this near the blue ditch? One of the things that comes out of the recommendations is, to the extent that we possibly can, get access and maintenance easements along the blue ditch. You know, are there other drainage issues? Like, for example, there's some drainage issues on the back side of the properties, on the east side of South Water Street, you know, so anything that can be done associated with an application, try and grab any of that whenever you can for an application. Looking at if the property has frontage on Bridge Street or Main Street, really those are kind of the focuses of this particular checklist, because it's really about the commercial district. Talking about can we have sidewalks? Is this accessible? Similar to the conversation that you just had about the Firehouse. Is it accessible from the street by pedestrians? The idea to create a village center is that you will ultimately have more people walking around than you think. People walking to work, walking to services, back and forth between one building and the next. So have we provided that? I've included 2 street trees for every 50 feet of frontage, so which is different than your perimeter planting, because in Warehouse Point, the perimeter planting, that might not be the way you want to go, and the lots are small enough. What really we care about is the street frontage, and maybe ultimately the final version of this might include some sort of a buffer in the along the back or sides property lines, but not necessarily street trees. But trying to throw everything that we talked about into some kind of a checklist. So this is,
Hey, Terry?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, one quick thing. I mean, one of the things that we've kind of all lived through here is, you know, some of these bad October storms. And now, do we need to give any kind of consideration as to what side of the street the power lines are on? Because if we start now at a street tree every 25 feet, 10, 15 years from now, are we, you know, doomed to having massive power outages again because of all these trees being near the power lines?
well, one of the things that you'll notice is that you can cluster these. The intent is not to say, you know, lawn, sidewalk, street trees. In some cases, your street tree might be back at the building. Okay, it doesn't have to be within the road right of way. There's lots of ways to accommodate that, and it's not going to be a function of quantity, but the allowing these trees to get bigger and become more mature. So we're not trying to repopulate the urban forest, but to provide enough green that it provides its differentiation. And the reason why I came up with two trees for every 50 foot of frontage is simply because most of these lots only have 50 feet of frontage. Okay, they're not a lot. So you'd have one on each side.
So the term street tree may be a misnomer word. It doesn't have to be against the street line.
Correct. Street tree, I'm sorry, in my vocabulary, street tree represents a specific kind of tree. Okay, it's a tree that's designed to have a canopy. Okay, that's a street tree. The other kind are flowering trees, and they're much smaller, or you have shrubs and other elements. So in my vocabulary as a landscape architect, the street tree is not its position, but the kind of tree that it is.
Gotcha. That's an excellent distinction.
First thing that came to me was that it has to be against the street.
No.
Is that in the planner's dictionary? No, I'm not trying to be funny, but because this has come up before.
Right. Well, it's funny that you should mention it, because you'll see in later on, I have another exhibit that talks about pulling some of the street trees out of the right of way and into private property. So in other words, I'm not wedded to the relationship that it has to be right there on the edge of the sidewalk, but is really in the front yard. How's that?
All right. So if we call them deciduous trees, would that accomplish the same thing, or?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So an evergreen wouldn't fit that your definition.
I don't have a problem with using an I don't have a problem calling an evergreen a street tree. You don't really use it that much because most street trees are salt tolerant and most evergreen trees are not. So that's part of the reason why you don't tend to call an evergreen tree a street tree, but it doesn't mean that it can't be. But an evergreen tree is not a deciduous tree. So if you do intend to allow people to put, let's say, a spruce tree, which was incredibly popular post the Civil War up until the mid 1940s, that was a very historic use of plant material, especially this time period for Warehouse Point. It would have been absolutely, you'd have this big spruce tree in your front yard. And so that would still, in my opinion, because it's in the front yard, be still considered a street tree.
So these street trees in your mind is another word for front yard trees.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep. Yeah. So again, because this is just a report, you guys can tinker with this, but I wanted to leave you with something that was practical. Okay. You know, are you dealing with, you know, where's your parking? How many curb cuts do you have? Is there room for a bike lane? Is there room for sidewalks? If there are not, for example, one of the things that would occur if the Firehouse application happened in after the regulations were implemented is if for whatever reason they were unable to or couldn't figure out how to get a sidewalk in there, then maybe what happens is they give you a 5-foot or a 10-foot easement along the front that would enable sidewalk be placed there sometime in the future. You know, there's some flexibility that you can consider. So, but I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to leave you with something that, you know, is going to be more practical than just the regulations, especially that you can sort of give to people pre-application so that, you know, that idea of access, you know, it didn't, the front door thing didn't quite get into this one just because, and that was a comment I had about the fire department, but that is the idea is what does it look like from the street? How do you get there? That sort of thing. So I did add this into the report.
I think it's a great addition personally.
Thank you. A couple other things. One of the things that came up just for clarification, in case it just, again, I started thinking practical. What do you need in order to implement these regulations? The build to line. The build to line is the historic placement of the buildings relative to the street. And the Warehouse Point regulations basically say you're not going to park between the build to line and the street. So basically your front yard is a no parking zone. So the question is, where is that build to line? And in some cases, rather than argue with people, I thought it would be easier if I just gave you a representative map indicating where that build to line is. I mean, it's fairly straightforward, but you would have a build to line where the existing historic structures are. In the case, for example, and I don't mean to pick on the fire department, but it's a great example, when you add an addition, you typically set that addition back from the build to line so that you've got the historic lines established and anything else that's new goes behind it towards the rear. So in that case, you know, that would be exactly what you would be kind of looking for. Any questions on this one? Okay, so then associated with that, did a couple of cross sections of various different locations and ideas. So here's your traditional streetscape, right? So you have your sidewalk, your road, the lawn, the sidewalk, street lights, and then your street trees are in the right of way if possible. But if the utility poles or the build to line doesn't allow that, then it can go outside of the right of way within the front yard, but still function as that reinforcement of a vertical line that the build to line starts, that is the street trees. And it doesn't have to be in front of the building. It can be along the property lines. There's lots of different ways to handle this. So it is quite flexible. But again, the intent is these are front yard trees. And then, hang on. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not do this properly. I didn't realize, hang on, that was not connected. Just a second, I apologize. I just want to pull this other one up to show the cross. did here. Okay, hang on. All right, my apologies. All right, there we go. So I also included at specific locations, sort of what that relationship is, where the street tree zone is, where you would have sidewalks, recommendations for widths of sidewalks where possible. I always tend to push it in terms of the size of sidewalks. Right now you have between 3 and 4 feet worth of sidewalks currently, especially with some ADA interpretations, we're pushing more towards 5-foot sidewalks. It's a little more user-friendly. One of the things that has happened over the last 10 or 15 years is that people, when they get outside, their elbows go up and they have expectations of greater need for more space. Plus, if you're walking around with a couple bags of groceries and things, you take up 4 feet of sidewalk without even thinking about it. So I just put together a series of annotated images here, indicating the sidewalks where the street tree zone might be, that sort of thing. So here we have number 1, and then we have page 2, just to indicate, see you have in this photo, you see the street tree is out of the right of way. Doesn't have to be on the street, okay? You have in this case, you've got a lawn area and then you've got a sidewalk. Over here, you can see sort of, I envisioned the sidewalk going up on the south side of Bridge Street, coming up the side. And you can see on Geisler's, you've got, well, what's interesting here is on Geisler's, the lawn area between the curb and the, as well as in this photo here, between the curb and the sidewalk have been paved. Okay, then make the sidewalk bigger. I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to, it's just usually the reason why you do this is that it's a lot less expensive to do a precast or a cast in place curb and then put the lawn in and then put the sidewalk. So it's not an integral curb. It's a lot less expensive. And then if for some reason the plow hits it or something happens, it costs a lot less money to just repair the curb instead of having to replace the whole sidewalk section. But just trying to give a sense of, you know, where things are. In this case, you've got poles on the Firehouse side, and you do have some lights, but you do on Bridge Street in front of Geisler's, you do have a zone where you could put street trees without interfering with those power lines. So just to respond to that question as well. So sometimes your street trees might go way back, and sometimes they might be at the street, depending on what your circumstances are.
Terry, can I ask a question?
Yep.
If the street trees are too close to the sidewalk, don't the roots make the sidewalk, I'll say, buckle and get warped, so it's a hazard?
Well, couple things. First off, if you have the right trees, not necessarily. If you have a big enough area for the trees to go, not necessarily. And then when it does happen, a lot of times that happens towards the end of the life of a street tree. In an urban scenario like this would be, your street trees are living about, I'd say 35 years. They don't live 100 years. It just doesn't. And not only that, but the salt stuff that we use now on the roads. So the street tree, you know, they are going to turn over. So you do need to replace them on a regular basis. And by regular basis, I mean, what's that? 3 generations, every 3 generations. They're not forever. So your street trees are going to come and go over time.
So who's responsible for replacing them?
A lot of times in a situation like this, they tend to become a project, like a DOT funded project where you, the town and DOT puts does the design work, puts the project in, and then ultimately 30 years from now, you do it again.
So it's not the property owner's responsibility to.
Well, you can do it that way. And I've seen some towns do that where, for example, if you have an approved site plan and that tree is part of your site plan, then you have some leverage in order to have the property owner maintain that tree. But look, damage happens, cars drive in it, circumstances change. Sometimes that street tree location may be something that wants to change. You know, every 35 years or so, it's probably a good idea to reevaluate. Because trees are not like buildings. They're not there forever, and they have a life.
And they can become a nuisance too.
And they can become a nuisance, correct. Yep.
It seems to me we're going to have a manual as thick as the one you just gave to us on how to interpret what tree goes where.
Well, a lot of times, quite honestly, your some town on an application, they require a landscape architect to provide the planting plan. And a lot of towns will just do that. And landscape architects are the professionals recognized in the state of Connecticut to do planting. So, you know, to develop planting plans. So that might be something to consider. I went on to Main Street as well. Main Street, for the most part, is really a typical sort of lawn, sidewalk, and then your street trees need to be way away from the poles. Okay. Continuing on, just looking what, you know, the continuation of the sidewalks so that it's consistent, because one of the things inside the report is that long-term new pedestrian bike lane plan that can be used for funding for grants and the development long-term of your streetscape. Just, you know, places like this one's kind of interesting. Over time, the level of the asphalt has gotten higher, so that now, especially in this place, the curb edge is about between 2 and 3 inches high instead of 6 inches. So when this, at some point, if this road ever gets replaced, the question of how to deal with this curb, do we eat the pavement and get it back down so that there's a step, or should we just make it flush? There's reasons pro and con, but that's something that happens on a regular basis, because you set your curb up with the brand new road, and then over time you add a little bit of pavement, a little bit of pavement, a little bit of pavement, and eventually you got to go in and you got to reset the grade of the road so that you have a curb. And then the last one is just up out Bridge Street heading towards 91. And you already have an established vocabulary here of lawn, and here the street trees are way out of the right of way. So that you've already got a sort of existing conditions. That is, I think that's all the pieces that I wanted to share. Yep. Yep.
So Terry, in the essence of transparency, the drawings and sketches you have shown us are absolutely consistent with the wording and verbiage in the report, correct? Those are just visual representation, what's already in the plan, which the public already saw, which we vetted.
Yes.
Those are just additional tools to help understand what the plan says.
I was looking for mechanisms in which to facilitate the use of the information that's in the plan, the things that we've been talking about for the last 2 years. Once you jump out of planning and start doing something from a practical perspective. So those are an effort to facilitate that. And this report, unfortunately, isn't the end. You have to take the regulation, you have to take the attachments, and you have to run through the process of implementing the zoning map, which means more public input, drafts, all that sort of stuff, and then the final implementation of the map and the regulations. So there will be changes once you start really looking at it, with that level of scrutiny.
Terry, is there any, I'll say, state or place we could look for funding to continue on to get our remaining tasks done?
Well, from a planning perspective, not there is some. The you guys are right on the forefront of dealing with the stormwater. And one of the things that we did was we integrated the stormwater information into the regulations. And this is something that's not being done, except for on the shore, and is going to start to become quite popular. So it's going to become necessary as sea level change, climate change, all that sort of stuff. So you guys are quite a bit ahead of the curve on that. So there may be some additional funding. A lot of times what I was doing over the last couple of years is anytime any kind of grant comes up that might be applicable, I usually forward that information to the town planner so that, just so we're all on the same page, and certainly willing to offer whatever assistance I can.
Okay, because it would be great if you could find us a grant opportunity to continue the work.
Yeah.
So Terry, at this point, have you satisfied the state's requirements of getting it done regarding publishing the report? Or is there still another action this commission needs to take?
Well, I mean, ideally, as far as we're concerned, we delivered the report. Ideally, it is always best if the commission accepts the report and, starts to develop the next action plans. I did modify the format of the recommendations so that it identified sort of which things were in your court, which things were in the town, in the Board of Selectmen's court, which things might be targeted by the town engineer, which things might be targeted by the WPCA. So I did change the content hasn't changed, but how they're formatted so that give a clue to sort of whose responsibilities are next. So I did modify that. I did that based on the conversation that I had with the Board of Selectmen last week and realized that I could do better helping everybody know what to do next.
I saw those, I'll say, tasks that, are assigned to the various entities. So if we vote to accept the plan, are we in essence voting that the selectmen take on a work plan?
No, I mean, these are only recommendations. Yeah. You're not committing anybody else to do something.
And that's kind of no different than the current plan of conservation and development. There are lead town departments, and it's no different than that.
Right.
So Mike D'Amato, you probably haven't had an opportunity to draft a memo for us to accept the report. Is that something you want us to kind of wing it tonight? Can we handle that at another meeting? How do you want to move forward regarding the wonderful work that Terry and her team has put forth?
I think to get us in a point where we can stick to the schedule and start doing the closeout of the grant with OPM and DE, well, it's an OPM grant through DECD. You guys making a motion to accept the report, endorse the report, is fine, just so that we have something affirmative, so that we can get things rolling, but it'll keep us on schedule. Terry, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm thinking that, there are a couple of terms that you could use. Simply accepting the report may be where you're at right now, rather than try to sort of endorse or what was the other term? You used another term, Mike, that kind of forces you into action. I think they want to know that it's been received and that the study is over, basically.
So Mike, do you want us to do that tonight?
Yeah, and then I think what we can do is when some of the application activities quiet down, hopefully, in a bit, we can then bring this back for the commission to start going through it and figuring out how we move it to the next step, right? So we'll go from accepting the report to moving into the implementation phase of actually looking at it. I think that's probably the next step. But you guys have a lot on your plate right now. At least I think. Maybe you don't think so, but we've got a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah, and the transition and bringing Clark in it's going to take some time. So we're looking forward to working with both of you moving forward on this. Yeah.
And you guys know you can reach out to me anytime.
Thank you, Terry. So does anyone have any questions for Terry on this report before we take our final action on this?
I don't have any questions. I would just like to thank her for an exceptional job and let her know how much I've learned from her.
Thank you.
What a pleasure she's been working with.
Yeah, Terry, I mean, that ditto for me. You know, it's really, you're an extension of our tools here, our learning team members, and you're just a pleasure to work with. Absolutely.
It's been my pleasure as well.
Well, with that, will someone kindly offer a motion to accept the Warehouse Point planning study?
I'll move to deem the study, the Warehouse Point planning study presented by Terry Hahn of LADA PC Land Planners as complete, and to accept the report we've received.
There's a motion on the table to accept the report. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
C5. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, guys. I'll be in touch with Mike. There's a lot of maps and data and AutoCAD files and a whole bunch of different, I mean, you know, there's a ton of stuff out there that we have available. And I'm not sure what you want or need, or if something comes up, you know, sometime in the future, always feel free to reach out. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Be well.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you,
Although
Terry.
I gotta stop going to go see the blue ditch. Like on Christmas Day, I went to go take pictures. So, you know, I can stop.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to miss not seeing you every meeting. For
Yeah,
that.
no, we got to come up with another project, you know.
I know. We
I'm
got
available. I'm
to
available.
figure out how to hire you to continue.
I'm available. All right. Well, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, I'll be in touch with Mike. And if you need anything, just call me. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything under other business, Mike, before we get to the business meeting?
The only thing we have is the added agenda item for the correspondence. That's the only thing I have, and I don't remember exactly where you guys added it.
We added that item for the business meeting. So we have other business, which you're saying there's none. Anything you want to talk about for correspondence?
No, because we'll cover it under the business meeting. The only other thing I'll mention, I can't remember if we emailed it over to you or not, but the Connecticut Bar Association is holding their training, which they hold every other year. It's usually on a Saturday all day. It's probably the best training that happens in Connecticut. It is happening in March. It will be virtual via Zoom. And, you know, please let us know if you're interested. We'll be happy to register you. We need to do that in the next 2 weeks so that you can get the materials mailed. If you're going to choose a training, this is the one. So just reach out to our office if you are interested.
Do you have an agenda for that training of what it covers?
Yeah, there is a pamphlet which I can have circulated. It covers everything: planning, zoning, wetlands, predisposition, conflicts of interest, environmental interventions, religious uses, things to watch out for. It's a start to finish by the best of the best when it comes to land use law. But it's a long day, 9:30 to 4. So I can email that to anyone who's interested if you want to see the schedule.
I would like to see it. I'm assuming everybody would like to just see the detail.
Okay, we'll send it out.
Mike, I think that'd be good to send it to everybody.
Perfect.
Yeah. Please do.
Okay, next up under our business meeting, we have the added agenda items. And we're going to have an informal conversation regarding the request from J.R. Russo regarding the current operation on Windsorville Road. Go ahead, Tim.
Yes, so as you know, the Charbonneau gravel pit was run by Apothecaries Hall Enterprises LLC on Apothecaries Hall Road on their property and also at the Windsor Sportsman's Club's property. Their permit expired November 28, 2020. It was granted, it's one of those one-year permits for earth excavation. Due to COVID and Governor Lamont's executive order, that permit was automatically extended to February 9th, 2021, which is coming soon. Now, also, as you were aware, this property is subject of the solar array application, which has been presented to you, which is currently in front of the Siting Council and is pending a decision, which could be any day now. The public hearing was held on that in December, and they do expect to have a decision either later this month or early next month. The issue is there's a couple of things. One is are they going to make a decision before the executive order expires on February 9th? And the other is the governor going to extend the executive order, which there was talk about today that he may be extending the executive order till April. Because currently, if he doesn't extend the executive order and the Siting Council does not approve the solar array, then they would intend to continue their gravel operation at the site, in which case we would need to come back to you to get that special permit extended again, another one-year permit. However, at this point, we don't know whether or not that's going to be necessary. So what this letter that we provided is requesting or asking is, would you entertain approval of an abbreviated application for, say, a limited period of time? I think, I forgot what Jay put in the letter. That essentially what that allows them to do is get an extension to wait out either the Siting Council's decision or wait out the governor, whether the governor is going to do another extension, so that they don't necessarily have to go through all the effort and cost of doing the full as-built survey and preparing all the other materials that are required for a full application. Because they may have, if they have to go through that expense to get an application in for the 9th of February, then they could turn around on February 10th and receive a positive approval from the Siting Council, and it would have been for naught. So that's what we've kind of come to you, is asking the question, can we do an abbreviated type of application to get kind of a, if you will, a temporary extension of the permit to get us to past the point where either the Siting Council makes a decision, yay or nay, and we know whether or not they're actually going to be continuing with gravel operation there anymore, or at a minimum, actually that's the real goal, is to get us to that point, whether, because then we'll know whether the gravel option or operation will continue or whether it's going to all turn into solar and we won't need it anymore. It'd be nice if the governor made the decision tomorrow or today that would have said, yes, I'm going to extend it till April, then we wouldn't have to worry about it until April, but he hasn't made that decision yet. And the deadline of February 9th is coming up shortly. So hopefully I've explained that clearly enough. Go ahead, Jim.
I don't think we can do that though, legally.
That's what I think, is that's a legal question, and that would be up to, I'll say, the town attorney or whoever. It's like,
well,
because I
we
think
would still be requesting the permit or the extension of the permit? It's just, do we need to do the full-blown as-built site plan? That's really the question. Can we provide our application with a kind of abbreviated materials, if you will?
I think that it's a legal question because it opens the how we do business and how we treat everybody.
So Tim, I'm thinking that, let's say that the siting council does provide approval sometime in February, whether it's the 9th, 10th, or 8th, whatever. There's still an opportunity. I mean, there's not going to be a transaction between landowners. You know, the property's not going to change hands overnight. So what I'm saying is, if there's an intent to go do the solar project, the current operation needs to cease, and we need the property needs to be returned and restored back to its condition, correct? So there's a period of time, there's still going to be a lot of work on the site just to return it. You just can't leave it in the condition it is now. You got to return those different phases back to, you got to replace a topsoil, whatever it is. You just can't leave it as is. And so I think there's some additional work that has to happen. That's going to happen up until spring, summer, whatever the world it is.
Yep.
And they're not going to have a permit to do that.
Well, we would still be requesting a permit. It's just we're asking, in light of what's going to happen at the site.
Can we chalk this up the cost of doing business? You know, it is unfortunate. It's just coming down to economics.
Yeah.
This is really this.
Sorry, Joe.
Go ahead, Mike. Yep.
I think perhaps the thing that would be most helpful tonight is to get, and maybe this is what I'm hearing, or we're hearing, is to take the temperature of the commission as far as what you guys feel is or is not appropriate. And that, by that I mean, do you think it's reasonable that they, given what's going on with the property, that we try to see if there is some option that does not provide for the full extension of the permit with a full plan set in public hearing, and come up with something else? Or do you think that the options on the table are the options to either renew based on what's required or not? If you feel that you think there is some merit to wanting to find a way to not grant this permit extension for a full-blown gravel operation, there may be some options that we have. Number one, and I'm spitballing, but you know, February 9th, under current circumstances, if he provided an application, that would you'd have 65 days to open the public hearing. You also have 65 days worth of extensions, which would get you to about the middle of June. So there is flexibility within the existing criteria. That creates a problem if in June he decides he wants to move forward, because now we don't have some deadlines, but we also have 90 days because of COVID to get us there. My main focus, just to give you some of my perspective, is that I don't, and I'm not suggesting this is the case at all, but I don't want to create, I want to focus on compliance and closeout. If these folks are thinking about leaving in whatever day that is, February, March, June of whatever year, I want to make sure that we have compliance, and that if there are any of those issues, that we figure out, you know, how they paint themselves out of the room. And, you know, I guess to that end, I think that eliminating a gravel operation and picking up a green energy site is probably something that the POCD supports, right? I mean, I think this is probably moving the parcel in the right direction. So giving them another year of gravel when we can perhaps give them less and that's what they want, might be something that the commission considers.
Well, yeah, he hasn't, Mike. You said it. He has 60 days for the application. He has another 90 days with COVID. So he just rolls the dice and see where he lands before he has to apply. I mean, or get to the table with his team. And then if it gets approved tomorrow or whatever, he's all set. And then he can work on reclaiming the land back the way it was.
Jim, I don't think it's that simple, because if he makes application before February, he has to make application with the current regulations. And there's a set of requirements that he has to fulfill for the town to accept the application. I don't think he can't submit something half-baked and roll the dice down the road. Am I misinterpreting what's happening? You just can't make application on a napkin and say, you know, here it is, without submitting the required documents. And that's what Tim's point is.
He needs all the as-built.
Well, no, in order for us to accept that, he has to have a complete set of documents. And what he's asking for is a little bit of relax on what those require, what the documents or submittals need to, what it needs to look like. It can't be on the back of a napkin.
No, and to me, what we have to get to, and I agree with Mike D'Amato, is compliance. And we know that there's a lot of open phases. We know there's big piles of waste back there. And we've got to get toward, he may stay operating. We don't know that the siting council will approve it. So giving him an extension of what is without solving the problem isn't, to me, the right signal.
I have had this discussion with some land use attorneys, right? What do you do with an application if you feel it's incomplete? If someone drops off a piece of paper that says, I'm requesting a special use permit to operate, you know, a casino on my lot. His guidance to me was, if you have something that says what they want to do and where, and they've paid you, you ought to put it on the agenda. If the commission decides they don't have enough information, then that's on the applicant, and they can choose to do with that application what they want. But to decide an application is incomplete and not put it on the agenda is probably not a good idea. So yes, we are dancing on the procedural lines. But in the case that I envision, and I agree that we would get this back by town council. The application is submitted with any and every piece of material that he has to date. If the application doesn't and he's requesting a permit, just as if he would any other year, if the application does not have the information that the commission needs, then he's going to have to provide it. And if that takes him 65 days or 125 days, he has to provide it by the timeframes that are outlined in the statute, or the application has to be denied. And if he waits to provide those documents to you until the very last day, and the application to the siting council is denied, then he's got a fire drill on his hands, and they've got to figure that part out. But I can't help him through everything. But I agree with the commission that we can't give them a permit without the documents for compliance. The only thing we can do is push out your date to make that decision.
Anyone have any additional ideas or thoughts that we haven't already talked about to help Tim make an informed decision as to what step his client might take?
Well, the main thing that came to my mind was that we've used these permit periods kind of as the enforcement tool. And that's what we've told the public, that we, at time of renewal is when we judge if an applicant isn't compliant, if they follow the rules, and we've rewarded good applicants with longer periods, and we try to hold bad applicants in compliance. So anything to do to skirt that process or the public hearing process, I think is wrong, and we shouldn't go down that road.
Just bad timing on his part. It just, way the timing hit.
I agree with Mike. He's hit it right on the head.
So Tim, do you have enough information to take something back to your client as to which way to go? It's like playing craps, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I believe so. I believe if he wants, at a minimum, we've got to submit an application on, before the deadline on the 9th, to be received. And then it's a matter of, if the as-bilt's completed by then, that's a wonderful thing. If not, then that's the risk that we were talking about, whether or not we can continue things until we have a decision on, from the siting council and determine, yes, we need it or no, we don't, and then get it in at that point in time.
So Tim, is that really the critical path, the as-built plan?
I believe so. I believe it's the expense for doing that.
Is it cheaper to have some aerial photography with the 3D imagery to kind of, that's
really,
probably
no.
less, what's that?
No, not, that's pretty expensive too. And time frame is an issue with that as well. Because
Okay, all right.
typically you want it to be current. And the thing with the aerial stuff is it takes them a while to fly something, and it is costly as well. In this case, the field work would be.
Can I just bring up one other quick point that I'd like to get some perspective from the commissioners on? Let's just assume that tomorrow the siting council approves the application. Charbonneau's do not need the permit. Everybody's happy. What is the commission's perspective on the closeout activities? If this permit expires, whether the order is extended or not, the permit will expire. They will not seek to renew it, assuming the siting council approves. My feeling has been that they don't need a permit to conduct the closeout activities, and we should not require them to renew for the purposes of closeout, because we want them to do the closeout, and the time frame to get it renewed just to close out. But I want your perspective. You know the history on that, but that may very well be where we land, is that the permit has expired, but now they need to do closeout.
Well, we don't know the purchase and sales agreement between, I'll say, the Charbonneaus, the owner, and the solar people. Maybe the solar people are going to clean it up.
True.
Can't do that. They can't do it. He has to close it out with the town. I mean, I don't know.
But as far as coming in to remove, I mean, there's huge piles of, I'll call it debris. They call it a volume reduction plant.
It has to be checked by the town to get his bond back, correct?
Yeah, but.
So if he's actively working towards closing out of the approved plan, yes, the town has a bond. I'm just wondering if he's not conducting gravel extraction, if he's not processing aggregate, whatever it is, if he's not doing anything actively, and the only thing that's happening there is closeout per the approved plan, what do you guys feel about, does he need to get a permit to just conduct those closeout activities? Because
what happens if the neighbors start complaining that the trucks are blowing dust as he brings all the garbage out of there?
Well,
moving the dirt, and all that,
I just think if you guys, I feel my personal opinion is I want him to close that site out as quickly and as efficiently as possible. But if you guys feel that he needs a permit to close out, then I think he's getting his permit one way or another, because the closeout has to happen. And so whether he has a permit extension, COVID, I think it doesn't matter if that's the commission's feeling. So I just wanted to make sure we covered that.
Mike, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, Mike, isn't there something in the regs that if you move more than like 50 yards of dirt, you need a permit? Because doesn't this open up, somebody else now goes out and buys himself a piece of equipment and starts doing earthwork in their yard and say, well, I'm just kind of reclamating, I'm, moving stuff around. I think any kind of earthwork needs a permit, doesn't it?
I think the difference here is that there's already a grading plan that was approved for closeout. So you guys have already set your expectations for what that site will be when he leaves. And
As a term and condition of the permit. So once the permit is gone, we can't hold them to that.
you cannot hold him to that, but we have a bond. The bond is what that's for.
You raised a great point there. You know, Tim, is there a final grading plan of what the site's supposed to look like when it's all done?
There is. Will they get to that point? I don't know.
That's right, because we're not fully excavating all the different sites.
Right.
So the contours are going to be different. So we need a new plan, no matter what. No?
Regardless of what plan we have, no, I don't think you do, because I think at that point in time, it becomes restoration. And at that point in time, the goal is not necessarily to meet this grade or that grade. It's simply to stabilize the site and restore the site. I think that's what the closeout is. The proposed plan kind of the proposed grading plan, in my mind, sets limits. This is how far you can go. If you don't go that far, then I don't think you're obligated to go that far. I think you can stop before you reach that point and then just restore the site.
So you could have a cut and fill section of substantially different elevations, because the cut section, you never did any earth removal in it. You could be way up here, where's the hand, way up here, and
as long as
there's no
as long as you finish that slope from that top elevation to the low elevation at the acceptable 3-to-1 slope and restore that slope and stabilize it, I think that's perfectly fine.
I know there's a lot of slopes back there. There's a lot of mounds and a lot of stuff.
Yep.
But isn't the permit kind of the contract that we're operating under? So if there's no permit, then there's no contract, there's nothing legally to hold them to do any of that.
Well, I think there is, because there's still the expectation that he has to restore the site, and there's a bond being held to make sure that he does that.
Yeah, but he just got paid a boatload of money for that property. He can just walk away, let the bond go. It's not worth it. There's 30 years of destruction back there. So he might say, well, the heck with it. Whatever the bond is, I'll eat it.
Well, I don't think that would fulfill his contractual obligations for the people that are buying it, because
but we don't know that. We don't know the contract and obligation.
No.
You know?
Tim, I don't think we're going to solve the problem, or to answer the question you sought tonight. There's a lot of different perspectives.
Yes.
What I'm hearing, it appears that there are some avenues. I think Mike D'Amato's kind of set the stage regarding you need to submit something.
Yep.
By early February, where you're going to be dealing with the fire drill sometime this late spring.
Right. Right. No. So there still is Mike's question, though. Suppose the siting council says tomorrow, yes, we don't need, or yeah, you can go forward with the solar. Then do we still have to come in for a permit extension just to close out the site?
I don't know. I have to divert to higher powers.
I know any job that we do, if you're working on a job, you need a permit till it's done. I don't know, renew or not.
Hey, I don't know if that sets bad precedence that there's any kind of activity that can go on without a permit.
Well, I think Mike also brought up a good point, is if you're not actively excavating, because the permit is for the excavation and removal of the material. If that's no longer there and you're just restoring, is it really the permitted, what you're being permitted for?
But the permit always also covers restoration too, kind of all in one big blanket.
I think my perspective here is, maybe Tim, close your ears. No, I'm kidding. These guys are going to get, if siting council approves it and solar project moves forward, why would the property owners come back for a special permit and provide plans to the town of East Windsor to close out an operation when the alternative is they just walk? Because there's even the $40,000 bond that we have, I don't know that that's enticing enough. And
It's
so
not.
you can't compel someone to do something if we don't have a permit. The only thing we could do is pull the bond and then do the work ourselves. So my feeling was, I want to make it as easy as possible for restoration activities to happen there, because that's what I want as a staff person for the town. I want that site as compliant as possible when the solar guys get started. And I don't see why they would go through the time and expense of coming before you to seek a special permit to restore if the siting council approves. That's my concern.
It's not really a special permit to restore. It's a permit to continue your operation. It's under the same permit if you're excavating or if you're restoring. It's the same permit. It's just a continuance of it. In my eyes, I mean, I personally think, what Tim could do, I'm not saying what to do, but, take last year's as-built, change the date and submit them. That's probably what they're going to do anyways. It's only been a year,
But won't the restore of the property and the cleanup be driven by the solar people? So since they will be coming forward with a permit to do their solar thing, won't their permit include how they're going to prepare the site for their solar?
I don't know if we have purview over something like that.
We don't.
Is there even going to be a site plan review for something like that?
No.
No,
But
we're not going to see it.
the plans that they prepared for the siting council is more plans of the finished step. This is what it's going to look like when we've got our solar field in place.
Are there
That's what the
elevations on
siting
it?
council's approved. It doesn't really cover where they start at, their starting point.
So
But
we
it-
don't have any say over how they grade the land for the solar? Because
Nope.
they'll just come in and do it their way.
Yep.
Yes.
So,
Tim,
so what you're saying is someone could restore the site per the plans as we envision, and that's not in the best interest of the solar people.
Yeah, they may come in and have different ideas elsewhere, so they may decide, where they just put in all that 1 foot of topsoil, that we're gonna take it all out and do something different there, so.
Well,
Tim.
I'm sure that they're not going to write a check to pay for the property if it's not up to their specifications where they want it.
My
Yes,
biggest concern is if we do anything special here, how does this affect any other future? We have other gravel operations in town, and when
Agreed.
they come before us, have we set a precedent for future applications? Say, hey, we don't want to have to go through all the rigmaroles. Give us the quickie permit that you've now established.
Agreed.
I agree with that.
We had the NORCAP property that went through some closure, and I don't know if that was done under the existing permit within the duration of that, or whether or not we issued a modified special permit for them to continue that. So there has been some closeout of some existing landfill operations, or whatever you want to call it, excavation operations.
I'm trying to think of something that will work. The only other thing I can think of is that prior to the expiration of the existing permit, you basically submit a modification using the proposed grading plan for the solar project, and you come in and say, I want approval to close out and bring the grades up, and you submit the grading plan that the solar project has. That'd get you, buy you some time, keep the permit valid, and if everything dies, then you come back and modify that plan and ask to basically continue moving forward with another phase. The grading plan that the solar folks have, in theory, is going to be the same or better than what your closeout plan is, because they need flat to have those panels. And I know the grading plan exists because it's online. I don't know if that would work. It seems like this is a square peg in a round hole, and that you may just have to bite the bullet. But it's very challenging, particularly with the fact that we have other operations in town that are permitted under the same section.
Right.
And I'm happy to talk further with you. I know we don't have a lot of time, but we can have this conversation offline if necessary.
Okay. Well, at this point, I appreciate all of your input. I think it's time to go back and have some discussions in the office and perhaps with a client and figure out the best way to approach this. All right, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tim.
All right.
We'll be seeing you again.
Yes. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Is there anything else other than adjournment? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Aye.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.